The purpose of this video is to show the configuration of a Teams room system with application version 4.11.12. The first page of the configuration is the information and license. In the upper right corner we have the application version 4.11.12 and we also see the Windows version. If I press the exit button here, I will be logged out of the Skype account running the Teams application and sent to the Windows login prompt, making it possible for me to log on as an administrator to do things like update the system, check out versions and such things. But now I'm going to move on to the configuration wizard here, so I'll just check this box here and then I press next. I then get into a short configuration wizard, and here I write the account information for the Teams account. And the password. I then have the option to choose between Microsoft Teams only, Skype for Business only, and two different hybrid modes. So the Microsoft Teams only is now the default. If we don't have any Teams account or connection to any cloud services, we would choose Skype for Business only and then configure this as a Skype room system. There are also these two options to choose a hybrid environment where we have a Skype for Business server and a Teams environment in the cloud. And the two different options there is how this system will behave by default. If I'm a Teams only and cloud only customer, I would choose modern authentication here. But if we have an on-premise Exchange server, this may be something we need to leave unchecked. So I press next, and here we have the option to turn off or on Cortana for voice control of the system, and then press next. The first option here is for the login name for the Exchange server, and usually also the login name for the Skype server. It has been copied from the Teams page before, and this could probably be left as is. Some Skype for Business servers do not accept this format as a username. Then we may need to write our username as domain/username instead of username@domain. We also have the option to specify where our Skype for Business server is. We usually do this if the Skype for Business server is in another domain from where my user account is. But usually we do not need to bother about this page at all. So press next and we are done. When I press finish here, this process will take about 90 seconds to restart the computer and log into Teams for the first time. And the computer has now restarted and is signing in, and we can see that that was successful because we both have the room name in the upper right corner below the clock, and we also have the meet and call options available, meaning Teams has been able to log in. We're now going to go through the rest of the options for a MTR system, and we have a button named More here. I press that one and then I press Settings. I am then sent to the login prompt, and the default password is SFB, as in Skype for Business, no capital letters. And when we are in the settings application again, we have some information on the first page. First we have the application version 4.11.12 and the Windows version, the same as in the guide before. So 19.04.2 is still the Windows 10 version 20H2. We also have the IP address, and if we have an IPv6 address, that would be displayed here, and a host name. The next button here is the account button, and we can see that this is the same as before, so we just move on. Advanced, the same thing here. It's the information for the Exchange and Skype for Business server. The first new option is the meetings button here. Here we have some different options that we can set. The first one is how should we handle an HDMI screen sharing in the room. So if we connect an HDMI cable to the grabber and get a HDMI sync, the room will automatically display the HDMI image on the screen in the room. We can't stop that. That's a default behavior that's always there. We can, however, change how it will be handled in the meeting. So if we leave the first button here, or the first option here checked, automatic screen sharing, the shared image in the room will also be shared in the Teams meeting. If we uncheck this automatic screen sharing, we'll still get the HDMI image in the room on the monitors, but it will not automatically be shared in the meeting. So we will have to do that from the room console on the table. The next one is if we are going to show the meeting names on the console on the table. We can here choose not to show what the meeting is about. That could be useful if it's a room where we may have sensitive meetings or such. The third one here, leave meetings automatically if everyone else has left, is a useful one. It's if we have a meeting with some people in the other end and everyone else leaves the meeting, and we are just leaving the room, but we forget to stop the meeting in the room. The room will automatically disconnect the meeting after a couple of minutes if we forget to do that ourselves. So the last two options here, Cisco WebEx and Zoom, will soon be joined by some more options to other third-party video conferencing applications, but these are the ones we have today. We can here choose to allow Cisco WebEx and Zoom calls. If we do, we enable the system to handle invites sent to this system's calendar with a WebEx link or a Zoom link. We need to do some other configuration in the Exchange server to allow this, but this makes the system process these invites so we can display them on the room console as any other meeting. If we do invite the room to such a meeting and want to connect to it, it will be connected through the WebRTC version of Cisco WebEx and Zoom. The default behavior is to reuse the name from the account and the email address from the account as the logged on user in these meetings, but we can also use this option to use custom information. So if we write here, for example, instead company name and info@.com, for example, this is the information that will be presented in the Zoom and WebEx meetings. This could be useful if we, for example, sit in a room that we call a conference room and we connect to a third-party meeting with a company we don't really know. They have no idea what a conference room is. It could be any organization. In this way, we can instead present our room as a certain name that we specify instead of this default conference room. Next option is a device, and here is where we set if this is a single monitor system or a dual monitor system, and we can also in a dual monitor system swap the screens if we happen to have put the HDMI cables on the wrong connector on the computer. We also have the option for Bluetooth beaconing, which is useful. If we turn this off, the system will not send out a Bluetooth beacon, but if we keep it on, the system will send out this beacon telling any mobile device, for example a laptop or a phone, that you are close to a Teams room system, and if you enter the room with your phone, you can easily transfer the call to the system. You can also use the pre-meeting experience when you start a meeting to choose the room audios system, and that way we can transfer from a laptop to the room easily. And when we choose the room with the strongest beacon will be shown on top of the list for the rooms available. The second option there, allow remote control from personal devices, is for us to use our phones, for example, as a kind of remote device for the meeting. The last option, send logs with feedback, that will create a button on the console on the table that makes it possible for the user in the room to send some information about how the meeting was, and the email address entered here will be where the email will be sent. So coordinated meeting is the next option. If you check this coordinated meeting option, we get the menu here, and we can then choose how this system will behave when connecting several systems together in the same room. So this could be useful if we have, for example, a system that's dedicated for a whiteboard, or if we want 2 or 3 cameras in the room that is being displayed at the same time, different angles shown in the same meeting at the same time. We then choose how each system will behave. For example, will it use the microphone in this system? Usually we just want one of the systems in the same room to use the microphone. We also have the option to turn off the camera and on the camera in this system, and also to prevent the users from enabling a connected camera. The last option there is if this system has a touch display that we configure for whiteboarding on this device, then this system will be used for a whiteboard in a meeting. And the last box is to enter the addresses of the other systems in the same room that will be dialed every time that we start a meeting with this system. So we do the same in every system and enter the other systems' addresses in each system. Since I don't have more than one system here, I will turn this option off and go on to peripherals. So first we choose the microphone to be used on this system, and also the conference speaker to be used for conference calls, and we choose which speaker will be the default speaker for other than conference calls. This could be, for example, the speaker in the monitor or some other speakers. The play button there is for us to test the sound volume for a startup volume in the room. So if we want, we can increase the volume to, for example, 60%, or decrease it to 40% or something like that. This is useful to set a appropriate level of audio to be reset to each time the system is being restarted. For example, the nightly reboot, or if we restart it during the day. Then we have the options for the cameras. This is a new feature in this version, the 4.11.12. So the first one is for the room camera pointed to the people in the room. In this case I have 3 cameras, the Huddly IQ, a Huddly Canvas, and an Huddly IP camera, which is really a Huddly L1 camera. So the Huddly Canvas, that's a content camera, that is a camera that is pointed towards a whiteboard. So I'll put that in the other camera instead here, Huddly Canvas. And when I do that, I now only have 2 cameras left to choose between. So I choose the Huddly IQ, and I can do a preview of that image to see what's being shown if we use that camera. I can do the same thing with the L1 camera. So this is the setting to choose a default camera for every meeting we start them. So the last option here is select a theme, and we can select from different themes to be used on the monitor on the wall. For example, we could use this blue wave instead, or we could choose a custom one where we upload our own image to the system that is the background for the monitors. It could be, for example, an image with a corporate logo or some instructions on how to connect to this system or anything else. but I'll just stick with something standard here. And when we are done, we can just press save and exit, and the system will reboot into the UI again. So after the system has rebooted, we'll come back to the application for everyday use. This could look a bit different depending on which region you have set the system to. For example, if you set it to an English-speaking country, you will get the Cortana icon. I am currently in Sweden, and we do not have Cortana support here yet, so I don't get that icon. But otherwise, you can start to use the system now. So that was the instructions for how to configure the MTR system using an application version 4.11.12.